The Michigan thing just continues to spiral and spiral and spiral. I know most of you have lives to live and jobs to go to or school to attend. And so, you may be settling in for the evening. What did I miss today? Well, Pete Thamel, ESPN. NCAA is now on Michigan's campus investigating and questioning coaches. Detroit Free Press. NCAA looking into the electronics of Michigan staffers. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo. TCU knew about the sign stealing in last year's playoffs and created dummy signals. Now, I know some of you who played the game or coached the game or just know the game know that pretty much happens every game anyway. Dummy audibles, dummy signals. And so, yes, there is a fair amount surrounding this entire ordeal of big deal. I've heard that a lot. So how big a deal is it? Well, I think that's the number one question that we need to ask here. But not how big a deal is it, how big a story is it going to be? You may think those two sound the same. They're not. So right now, we're in what I call headline hurricane warning territory. Headline hurricane is a term I've used on the show before. That's that thing where for instance, if one person walks up to you and says, Bradley stole a pair of jeans, you say, that sounds about like Bradley. Shame on Bradley. But if 100 people yell, Bradley stole a pair of jeans, it sounds so much more serious. And people who are in a capacity to punish Bradley may take it a lot more serious. And here's the other thing. When a bunch of people are screaming the same thing, you've got to really go above board with how you think atonement should be handled. Suspend. No. Fire them. No, lock them up. And that's the territory we're now approaching with this whole Michigan sign stealing scandal. Notice it's not one entity. It's not just Ross Dellinger. It's Ross Dellinger over here. It's the Detroit Free Press. Washington Post had a big expose last night. Thamel's got something new every 3 or 4 hours. Rarely, in sports or anything else, do this many people get fixated on you in media and you just get out scot-free. Now, if I'm a Michigan fan, I know how you guys feel. You feel like you're getting railroaded. You feel like you're getting screwed in this. You feel like a lot is being made and you're being made to be the face of something that probably is more widespread than anyone wants to admit. My response to that is I agree. And yet it may not matter. It may not matter because I'm not responsible for handing down sanctions on these sorts of things. But the other thing I just want to talk about for a second, because this is how I've spent the majority of the last 2 days, at least on this front, is I got a lot of people coming to me saying, bro, do you know how serious this Michigan thing is? Or, bro, how serious is this Michigan thing? Well, that's the question, isn't it? How serious is it? It doesn't matter how serious I think it is. See, here's the thing. You may not think it's serious. I may think they ought to be sent to Guantanamo for it, and neither of our opinions matter because we're not in an authoritative position. Really, at the end of the day, whether you read Pete Thamel or Dellinger or Detroit Free Press or, the Harris County Journal-Constitution comes out with a news story since everyone else seems to have one, all that matters at the end of the day is what does the NCAA think? What does the Big Ten think? And I happen to believe, still on guided word, that the College Football Playoff Committee may look around and if no one else does anything, they may just take it upon themselves to become judge and jury on this. Hopefully not, because that would be ludicrous. How serious is it? That's really the unknown. I've done 1 million radio hits last 2 days. That's what I keep coming back to. How serious is it? But I'm leaving it open-ended. I think it's fairly serious. I certainly think everyone who's out there banging the drum of everyone does it is very misguided. Everyone doesn't do it to this extent. You're crazy if you think everyone does this. I also am very curious how this entire venture was really funded. Because it wasn't from a dude making $55K a year. Of that, I am fairly sure. Can't prove it, but of that, I am fairly certain. So, there's some very, very big red flags that have to be pulled down off the pole before anybody starts to feel halfway decent about where Michigan is here. But how serious is it? It doesn't matter if one person is yelling about your offense or 100 people are yelling about your offense. It doesn't change the severity of the offense. That's what I keep going back to because I've watched this happen when it comes to recruiting scandal before. If most NCAA investigations you don't even know about. Some of them you do. And the ones you do are made to be much bigger deals. But in reality, what you don't know is you're seeing one example over here that they've dealt with 50 other times, and the sanctions were mildly punitive at best. But because there's so much attention on this one over here, you think some university gets off light when they get the same very, very minor punitive actions taken against them. And the reality is, no, that's just the letter of their law. That's kind of how their sanction scale said they should handle it all along. So what does that sanction scale say about something that, as far as we know, they've never had to punish for? It could be that they look at it the same way Major League Baseball and Bowie Kuhn looked at Pete Rose, or it could be that they look at it and say, I mean, yeah, it's bad, but what are we going to do? We're going to drop the hammer on an entire university because they were stealing some signs? Fire the dude, clean things out. Maybe Harbaugh's there next year. Maybe he's not. If he is, fine him. He should have known even if he didn't know. I could go either way on that. I have no clue which way they're going to go. And I don't think, at least from 99% of the peanut gallery out there, I don't think there's any guided skill in anticipating which way they're going to go on this. I've got my feelings like you do. I feel like there are a lot of clouds over the university right now. I don't feel like it's going to end very well for Michigan. That's just a feeling I have. It's not like I have, NCAA enforcement on the line too. Seems like some other folks do. But I am not one of the entities the NCAA decides to leak things to. For whatever reason. Have we covered that organization on the show a time or two? I don't know. Look, some other things that I just want to hit right quick. I have a beloved coach that texted me a little while ago, and I have not answered him back, so I'm going to answer him on the show now. He hit me up and said something to the effect of, have you noticed that no football people are really making that big a deal of this? That's not entirely true. It's just that not many of them have gone on the public offensive for reasons I'll talk about in a second. Not many of them have gone on the public offensive. Now, remember in the world of tampering, about a year ago when everyone was complaining about tampering in the transfer portal with NIL and stuff, and I came on this show and said, I'm not taking it serious until one of you puts your name out there publicly and calls other coaches out by name. Y'all all want to say everyone's doing it. Call them out. Well, Pat Narduzzi did. And I gave him a hat tip on the show. Pat Narduzzi was the only one with the stones to specifically go on record and specifically call out USC and Lincoln Riley because he thought they stole Jordan Addison. And lo and behold, a cycle later, Pat Narduzzi was on record as saying, no, we didn't have any problem with tampering this time around. It's almost like going on the offensive works. Well, you haven't heard any coaches publicly start shaming Michigan. I've had some of them do it privately. None of them have done it publicly, which leads me to my next point. Ross Dellinger has a really interesting story over on Yahoo late this afternoon. TCU was so aware of the sign-stealing operation that Michigan had put in motion that they got tipped off by other coaching staffs, and they used dummy signals, and as you know, they went on to beat Michigan in the semifinal. Was it because of that or not? Whomst to say. But the obvious follow-up there is, wow, this was so well known that other staffs were tipping off each other when they were going to play Michigan. If it was so well known, why didn't we know about it? If it was so well known, why hadn't other coaching staffs put this way out in front of the public? Why did it have to be uncovered in the manner it was uncovered? And the answer is probably one of two things. Either they didn't think it was a big enough deal, or they themselves were engaged in the practice to some degree. And I would imagine the reason you didn't see other coaching staffs come to the forefront with this is probably the same reason they don't call each other out by name when it comes to tampering. Because if I know 3 days from now, I may have to do a little light tampering myself, I'm not calling you out today for tampering. Now, that's just me putting two and two together. What am I? I'm just sitting here in a studio in Nashville with, maybe a few well-placed sources, but by and large, I don't think you need to know anyone on the inside of the college football bubble to assume some of the things I just said are true. But I think that you will continue to see details come out about this. The whole FBI involvement from Matt Weiss's computer thing from it feels like years ago, but it was earlier this year. If you don't remember that, they had to fire a guy up there. And it was for things that were found on his computer. And now, lo and behold, today you find out the FBI has been working with university police because they believe there were very, very serious infractions. We're not talking about of an NCAA nature either, it sounds like. You can do your own math on that. And so you've got all sorts of acronymed outfits on campus. You got the FBI up there. You got the NCAA up there. SEC teams never travel up there. Maybe the Securities and Exchanges Commission travels up there. So it doesn't feel like things are going to end well for Michigan. But that doesn't mean anything more than I've just got a bad feeling about it. I know. It would greatly behoove our social team if I were to bang the gavel on the table and just tell you Michigan's cooked. Maybe they are. But I'm not ready to go on record and say that yet.